Hey everyone, hello. Diablo 4. We've been playing it.
We have been playing Diablo 4. We have now both beaten the main story.
Yes, we have defeated the final boss. We've been playing Diablo 4 for quite a while.
Yeah,
And we have some things to talk about.
we certainly do. Overall thoughts, just to start, just to like set the tone. What do you think of the game all in all?
Just to preface this, I was playing on PC, you were playing on PS5.
Right, yeah, we were
that's
tackling two different platforms.
two different platforms.
Yeah.
Quick word on performance. The game has been running almost without fault for me. I have a 3080 Ti and a 9700K i7, 16 gigs of RAM. I'm rendering at 4K, almost maxed out with DLSS 2.0 unbalanced, which probably means it's running somewhere in, like it's rendering at somewhere at 1440p or thereabouts. Anyway, it rarely, if ever, drops below 120 FPS on those settings. There are some stutters here and there, especially in towns, that I noticed. And I noticed those in the beta as well. I don't know if this is something that can be fixed in the future, but it's very, like, it's you see it and you hit it and then you go do your business in town and then leave. It's not really a problem. Server connections have been fairly okay for me. The latency usually, barring some special circumstances, which we'll get into, for me has usually been in the 60 to 80 ms, which is fine. So yeah, performance is amazing. I like the game a lot. Like, apart from the performance, I think it's pretty much everything that I wanted them to do. I have some reservations about some of the decisions they made, but as far as being a successor to Diablo 3 and just the new Diablo game, they have nailed almost everything they wanted to do as far as tone, music, exploration, gameplay, the reactivity of the world, the skills, the builds that you can have. Like, there's a variety of different roles that you can, even with each individual characters, to a level that I didn't even think it was. Like, you will see, I played as a druid, and the druid, one of its sort of unique abilities is shapeshifting into other animals, and I completely ignored that, and then didn't even invest any points into that. So my druid is ultimately going to be different from someone else's druid who's going to invest into the shape shifting stuff. I think it's, if you want like an accessible action RPG, and if you've been disappointed or not super satisfied with all the other games that came out between Diablo 3 and now the free to play stuff and the expensive stuff, this is it.
I also came away from Diablo 4. I think overall with a more positive and negative point of view, but I think I do have a more negative outlook on the game than you. Performance-wise, on the PS5, I also didn't have many issues. I think, like you, maybe there were some slight drops in towns, and I think I walked into like a small stream or whatever at some point and got a very, very minor drop in frames momentarily. But that's it. For the most part, game runs smooth. In combat, loads of demons around you. Combat runs, like, the game runs totally fine. I had no issues performance-wise that kind of were considerable. I did run into a few bugs, some more major than others, and obviously we were playing on a pre-release build and there's some known issues, but some I ran into weren't mentioning those, and I think one of our other colleagues, Josh, who's working on some guides for us, also ran into some issues. Narrative-wise, totally agree. I think the game does a really good job taking us back into the world of Diablo, introducing us to new characters, similar concepts, similar places, but sort of like refreshing it and updating it in a new way. I think it's done a really good job on that. The music is fantastic. The art is fantastic, both in terms of, like, you know, the places you go to and like the creatures you fight. And voice actors brilliant. Like, all of those sorts of parts of the game, I really do dig it. I think gameplay-wise, the game kind of falls flat. And while it is accessible, I feel like if you were to give this to someone who isn't super into ARPGs, just wants like a casual game to play for a bit, you know, it's totally fine. But if you're an ARPG fan, if you have played Path of Exile, if you have played Lost Ark, even if that game is sort of like cruddy monetization, Diablo's not the only, you know, fish in the pond anymore.
There's definitely more competition now than there was when Diablo 3 came out.
Right.
And that's good and bad, right? Like, it's good because you can have games that focus on different things. Like, you have Path of Exile was like incredible customizability and builds that, you know, like such like a deeper RPG level than I think any of those games have. And you have games that are like more sort of a little bit more accessible, or focusing on specific things like what's the game that's very much like Diablo 2? You have Lost Epoch. You have these games that are, they're all doing their own thing. But to me, as I was talking to Connor, it's sort of the Call of Duty of those things. Where
it's the big one. Everyone sort of knows what it is, and it does a lot of things well, and it always has.
Yes. And that's like, my takeaway was it, which is like, if you're looking for something deeper, you're going to find someone who's like, Wrath of Exile is so much deeper, which that may well be true. But if you want something that is with enough depth, it's sort of like, if you compare the Modern Warfare reboot to like other shooters, where it's like, oh, we're doing realistic like tactical reload animations and like weapon recoil and things like that, but it's still Call of Duty. So it's not like we're not going all the way with it. This game is almost like that, where it's like the production value and the quality of the animation and the quality of the action is on that level, and I think it's beyond any of the other games that exist, and it's part of why I continue to like this more than the other games. But it's not going to be like insane customization that you see of these other games, which is by design.
Which made you, okay, so we've sort of set up our overall thoughts on the game. What part of the game do you want to really dive into first? Like really
I want to talk about the narrative a little bit without spoiling it.
Sure, yeah.
I think overall they really match the dark tone that they have promised. And this is just not like, the image is darker, which it is, and it's less colorful, which it is. Like, this looks more like Diablo 2, which is, this is... but also they matched in the story. Like, the story is quite dark. It has these sort of different arcs that follows different characters. It's similar. Excuse me. It's very different to Diablo 3, where it's like you do the thing, go back to Dicker Kane, and then you do the other thing, and then you go back to Dicker Kane, and you go to the other thing, and then Dicker Kane accompanies you, and a big thing happens. This is more like you meet a character who tells you a bunch of stuff, and he's like gives you effectively like two leads to follow, and gives you like, okay, go meet this person in this area of the map that you've never been to, or go meet this other person in this other area of the map you've never been to. So it sort of gives you this purpose to explore beyond just like following the quest marker and like doing the thing, because the quest marker is effectively hidden in sort of like fog of war. And you don't even know, like, okay, what's like this a castle? Is this like some dude standing on the side of the road? Like, what's happening? You don't know. So I think that this gives you the sense of like, it both gives you the sense of scale of the world, that the different regions are distinct enough that you could conceivably travel to a different part of the map to meet a different person who's living a different life in a different situation. But he knows the person that sent you, so there's a relationship there, right?
Yeah, for sure. It kind of feels like, you get into this world and, big, awful stuff is going on, and you meet up with, Lorath, and then it's like, okay, we have to figure this out. Go over there and sort this out, or while I go to the dry steps or whatever. And I think that is kind of a more exciting way to do things, because there was a fun moment like while we were playing this game where I was like, yo, have you beaten the first boss of like Act 1 yet? And and you were like, I think so, but I were even kind of realizing it had gone and done Act 2 first in Skullsglen when you went to Fractured. And I think that was kind of a cool moment. I suppose we'll touch on why I thought that boss was so cool in a non-spoilery way when we get to like how this game looks. But yeah, story-wise, you're right. Whereas Diablo 3 was sort of just like kind of like a fantastical epic, where you were this great hero charging to hell, charging to heaven, sort of taking on these big monsters. This is a very dire, sad game. I think way more than Diablo 3. Lots of sad stuff happens. In the beta, I believe, so this would have been covered in Act 1, you do run into Vigo, right? In Fractured Peaks, as you go into the mines.
You can finish Act 1, the entirety of Act 1 in the beta,
Right, so...
I don't remember if you run into Vigo or not.
If this isn't in the beta, we can cut it out. But with Vigo, he sort of seeks redemption, and then he's put into the sick, sort of like Knights Templar suit, right?
He becomes a mech.
And that, while being the dopest thing in the world, is also kind of a really sad moment. And like, you get... Obviously, that's what... There's lots... Diablo 4 managed to hit that same tone over and over and over and over again consistently. in a way that doesn't feel repetitive and sort of grim for grim's sake. You know, they introduce these great characters and they allow you to invest in them, like emotionally, because none of them are annoying or sort of cringy or anything. And then bad things happen to them because you're fighting demons and stuff is going on.
I found Neyril a little annoying.
You didn't like Neyril?
No, I didn't like Neyril. I think they lean a little bit like there's more character work in here than you might think. But also that sometimes gets them into the situation of like having tropey, like, oh, I'm the plucky little girl who's after knowledge that faces tragedy and then becomes the grim. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's doing they rely on some tropes that I think they could have done without. But that being said, there is an exceptional level of like character depthness, and especially if you take the time to speak to these characters beyond the thing that triggers the mission. Like there's a sense of like the world is going on without you, and things are happening, and you're just almost like a visitor. Like your energy, you're not, you know, you are the hero of the story, but not in the same way that you were in Diablo 3. And I think that sort of is thematically appropriate with the sense of this being an MMO, and what the thing that you're doing is being done by millions of other people who are playing different things and who are in different countries. You know what I mean? And sort of like it fits. It's like it's not hinging on you. It's cool if you go chase these leads. But yeah, as you mentioned, you can Act 1 and 2 are effectively like chasing different leads, and you can start with either of them. They're very much within the same level range. And then once you get to 3 and 4, you get sort of railroaded. But even then, you get sometimes a lot of other options that again and again send you to different parts of the map to be like, oh, talk to this other person all the way over here. Which, yeah, I found it like, I have some, we're not going to talk about the ending here, but I have, maybe I'll write about it soon, some sort of weird misgivings about the way they decided to end it, because they had a chance to do something interesting, but then they went like kind of milquetoasty with it. But otherwise, I think the game is, if you want like something darker, I think it pays not to skip dialogue as you do, as I know a lot of people do in these games. At least for the first playthrough, let's just listen and sit with like, especially the voice acting.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say with the voice acting in this game, like skipping like dialogue is like I would never do that. It's worth shouting out the voice actors for. I'm willing to say the entire main cast is fantastic, like above and beyond fantastic. Similar props should go to the composers and musicians behind this game.
The soundtrack,
excellent job.
I cannot tell, like, if you like the music of Diablo 3, like there's so much more here, and it's relevant to the area that you're in. It's not just the same soundtrack. Like if you go to the Dry Steppes, it's different from Skull's Glen and like the Druid area, and it's just some of them are like so mournful. And the soundtrack of this game is just gives it like the ambiance that again matches the rest of this dark thing that they're going with, and it's just cannot wait to listen to the whole thing.
And when they turn it up, they turn it up. Like, no spoilers of what the final boss is, obviously, but the final boss track is brilliant. It's so good. I really, really dug it. I want to talk to you about the game being open world and the sort of gameplay in general of Diablo. So, like, in terms of like the action and what you do, it is an ARPG. There's Diablo, right? You're right. The skill tree does allow for some customization and some open, like, ended how you can build your character. I want to ask you a question. Why is this game an open world MMO?
I think that's because for the same reason that why it has a battle pass, which is not active in the preview build, by the way. Right. But it's basically I don't think it's a gameplay reason. I think it's a business reason. I think it's the reason why it's an always online game when 3 was only online on PC but not on consoles. It's the thing that you do now. It's selling skins. It's having people look at you and being interested or jealous of like, oh, what the hell is this? I've never seen this before. Oh, it's an item on the store. It's modern gaming. Like, it has a battle pass because games have battle passes now.
I hear what you're saying about the battle pass. I hear what you're saying about MMO aspects of it. And for the record, I think that like taking on big world bosses is cool. And I think in Diablo, in the open beta, that was cool as heck. Like, I love that stuff. I'm asking whether or not you think stretching out this Diablo experience to being this massive open world game where there's tons of like optional dungeons and stuff, rather than the linear sort of like structured, paced experience you got on like Diablo 3, Diablo 2, makes this game better or worse? Because I personally came away from it thinking like, there's just so much like side quests and so much like dungeons that I don't think are compelling enough on their own to warrant changing the format of the game to this. I really don't.
I think it's a fair criticism. It's the sort of thing where it's like like a modern open world game. There's a lot of mid quests, and as you were talking earlier, like there's a lot of like go kill 10 of these or collect 10 of these.
Go kill 10 boars, like in a Diablo game, and I'm like,
yeah, there is some of that stuff,
and they're good side quests, right? But like for every go to kill 10 boars, it's like, well, go over here and talk to this guy, like you mentioned, right? And that's cool. Like if you do a side quest, it's like go down to the bottom of, I can't even mention, like the last zone, Kyrgyzstan, right? And there's a cool town, like a dock town down there, and that's sick. But if I have to like pick and choose side quests, that could very well be go kill bandits until you've killed 50 bandits.
Yeah.
To even get to this town, which the main story doesn't even take me to, right? Or there's like an encampment in like a swamp up in like eastern, like the Iron Wolves encampment.
Yep.
If you just do the main story, which is the best part of the game, sort of like narrative wise, right? You never ever go there. Ever.
Although to be fair, the story takes you to so many places. Like you will see so many varied places if you just stick to the story. But I actually like I'm kind of. I disagree a little bit. I think the major open world thing gives them the freedom to have these moments that you were talking about, where it's like, this is not the thing in the story. I just went to this thing. It's like this cool town that I can tell you a story about. It's sort of like the Elden Ring mystery of like, what is out here? I don't know. Like once you get your horse, you can just venture into areas, and then it's like, oh, this is a town. Here was some dude who's like looking for his son who turned into a demon or whatever, and it's nothing to do with like the rest of the game that you have on the other side of the map. And I think that's amazing. Like I like playing Diablo, so more of Diablo, even if some of it is just basic, like go kill some boars, I'm fine with. Like I'll turn my brain off for those quests. I just think it did not need to be an online game. Like I don't want to run into other players where mobs just have to spawn every time you kill them because they have to keep serving the players coming like through the levels. We didn't run into much of that because obviously we're playing a limited build with only a few people. But at launch, it'll be MMO time. It'll be like you leave town and you find 6 players doing skills. And you're like, which mob am I targeting? What's going on? And you have to go like off the beaten path a little bit. So
I didn't even clock the fact that when I'm going and hunting down 10 boars, there might be 30 other people also doing that.
Yeah. The beta was definitely a good test case for that because you'll see like mobs immediately spawn as soon as you finish your own thing. Yeah. Because there's another player running in and he needs the same thing. And it's like, what's he going to do? But that's like, like there's nothing we can do to change it. I wish this was not the case, or I wish it was at least you would see players in town, and then when you're outside, you're in like the division. But they're going for a full-on MMO, like you see people doing their thing and riding their horses around.
I suppose my worry is that because obviously once you beat the game, like the story for the first time, you reach the end game, right? So there's a lot of clearing out all the dungeons on the map. There's doing dailies, which you get near the end. There's obviously raising the world tier level and doing all that. And obviously, once you beat this game for the first time, you make a new character, you don't have to do the story again.
Yes.
And I'm sitting down and I'm thinking, like, if I don't have to do the story again, if I'm playing through another character, am I going to have fun? And it says a lot to the Diablo 4 sort of gameplay and how solid it is. And how well they've refined it, where I'm like, yeah, I might have a decent amount of fun, but am I going to be excited about like doing a decent chunk of these side quests again? Probably not. Am I going to be excited about some of them? Like you said, totally cool. Like the more narrative ones. There's one in Skosglen where there's like an innkeeper, and there's a whole sort of backstory about like a faction. I don't want to spoil too much, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's like the history of like what happened in the past in this area, and that's cool. When you learn more about the world, that's sick. But like killing 10 boars in Diablo, like if that's the cost, if that's the counterbalance to sick open world sort of world bosses, I don't know if that's worth it.
Yeah,
to the pacing of the experience.
Right? And I think that they made the choice of like once you finish the campaign, as you said, and then you don't have to play it on the other characters. And the same goes for the horse. Once you unlock it, it's available to the other character. So that basically means that they want you to get into the gameplay of the new classes that you're going to create. Like they know that so they know what they're doing in the sense where it's
the sort of player who would play this game again is the sort of player who wants to get into that sort of thing. Totally.
Or it's he's not looking to do Lorath arc again. He's looking to see what's the mage like in this game. So they're like, okay, we got you. We just skip the thing. And a bunch of the bonuses that you unlock, like the Lilith shrines, mean that every character you're starting is immediately more powerful than the very first character you started. So they're giving you sort of boosts and sort of leg ups so that the first time's like, oh my God, I have to grind from the beginning again. I can't, right?
You get a mount from the start, right? If once you get the mount on your first character, you start a new character, you just get a horse, which will speed everything. And you're right. It's clearly meant to make
skills that you unlock by having like Lilith altars everywhere. You're going to start with a bunch of skills that you can invest into something. So they clearly want you to get going and just start learning the unique things about the new character and new build.
Right.
It's definitely, this is going to be a decisive thing, I feel like, of players, but I don't think it's that controversial considering most of these games now are basically MMOs.
Maybe I'm just being old. Who knows? But in my mind, what it means is there's a lot of weight now resting on the shoulders of the seasonal aspect of this game, right?
Yeah.
If they nail the seasons, if they make the sort of task of leveling up a new character in a new seasonal sort of like server, a new seasonal playlist or whatever, if they make that really compelling and really engaging and mix up a lot, then a lot of my issues go away suddenly. Because then the process of leveling up a new character is different enough, it's engaging enough, and it's sort of like, exciting enough where I'm like, I don't mind doing like dungeons or side quests again because the core gameplay has shifted enough where it's not that repetitive.
Yeah.
If it's not quite as like dynamic and exciting as that, I'm worried that it will feel like, new season's out. I've got to do all these dungeons again, or I've got to like do these world events again, right?
I think that all is going to hinge on like how excited you are or how long you're going to remain interested in the combat, which is a thing that you're doing for 90% of the time. Once all the stuff that you have seen, the story and the quests, and you've made peace with that, I think if you're still invested in the combat, the game will carry on. Which, like, for my money, like combat is exceptional. The world is very reactive. Like you can break things, which is something that so many of those games miss. That make its world feel so static. Like you do, like on my druid, I have this wind sheer ability that throws it's a ranged like wind ability. I can send that and see it like cracking through cupboards and tables and smashing things, and it makes me feel powerful. And you have like for the barbarian spin to win thing, you can be like, I'm just fucking going into this room and just fucking getting gold out of everything.
It's so
smashing everything. Right. So all that stuff is like in the combat, like it is effects and sounds and like opening chests and like a lot of Foley work there for people who like their sound work. That is just again the AAA on a level that you cannot see in any of these other games, which is why I come to this. And I think as long as you're invested in that, especially for how much depth there is for like building the same class in 3 or 4 different ways, I think that will carry it a long while. I don't know. Again, the seasons, they talked about it, but it didn't really say how much is going to be changing. For me, I'm looking forward to that. Like, I'm looking forward to playing it on different characters and doing stuff because the gameplay is just so satisfying. Really, like, I just gotta put a podcast on and grind this battle pass. I don't care.
Oh, for sure, This will certainly be a game that like a ton of people can just really dive into, and I do respect that and understand that. Speaking of for your money, do you think this game is worth 70 quid?
And the value proposition is always different for everyone. But for me, I would pay $70 for this, considering the content and me loving the gameplay so much that I know the value of that to me is going to be very, very high. I think it's a little crummy that you have a $70 game with microtransactions for skins and a battle pass. But it's the Call of Duty model, and it's the Activision model. It's a terrible model that triple dips, but it is what it is. Like, I can't.
It's worth noting that in the preview build, the store isn't in the game. We've seen there is a tab for cosmetics, and I believe there's also a tab for add-ons, although we haven't seen that.
I don't know what that's going to be.
Yeah, we don't know what it's going to be. From what we've been told, from what we know, it's purely non-gameplay affecting stuff. I hope they don't add like level boosts. If they add level boosts, like to boost up a character, I would be so gutted, right? Because then like, and I'm like, but we don't know, so we can't speak on that, obviously.
Yeah, but these things, like if you look at the modern Call of Duty model, it's basically that, where they're maximizing on every potential revenue stream.
My problem is to loop back to like my original point, right? And you're right. I think overall this game is solid, and if you like ARPGs, you like Diablo. I mean, this is good to buy, right? There are other options now. You know, Path of Exile is out. Path of Exile 2 is coming out. I'm pretty sure both of those games are / will be free to play. And I've been doing this live servicey model for longer. Have more depth to it, that sort of thing. I'm curious to see the long Lost Ark as well, still kicking. If you really don't mind monetization, that's you want to bust that wallet out. You think you know hell, you have no idea. Yeah, it's free to play. That's true. I suppose that's technically true. I think walking away from this game, I'm very interested on the longevity of it and sort of how it handles post-launch. I think that's where a lot of the value add is going to be seen. And I hope a lot of the bugs get fixed. Like, I ran into some pretty serious ones, like a boss that kept on crashing on me several times in Act 3, I believe. Josh, who I mentioned earlier, had, and this is, disclaimer, this is all pre-build, so maybe this will be patched on launch, we don't know. It's worth noting just in case they aren't. He had his game file reset to Act 1, which hopefully that's not in the full game. If it is, especially if you've got like a hardcore character, like, could you imagine?
Yeah,
I'd turn the game off. I'd throw the PS5 out the window. Like, are you serious?
Wasn't New World, the game New World, that had something with like a reset like that? Where the servers were overloaded, that people lost progress?
Yeah, I believe so. But New World had a bunch of like super serious like S-class bugs in it.
Sure.
Like disastrous like nightmare bugs.
But the point is, when servers get overloaded, some funny stuff happens with progress.
Oh, that's totally true. Yeah. And so fingers crossed this stuff gets fixed.
About that than crashes, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. Fingers crossed this all gets fixed up, right? And this isn't an issue on launch, but it's just worth noting that we did run into some stuff.
I think if any problems arise, it will be server-related problems. For my money, playing on PC, I was shocked by how polished the game is. Not because, not to throw shade at Blizzard or anything, but like considering how games come out now, and considering if you're in this business, you play a lot of pre-release video games, and there are a lot of things that your brain automatically is like, it's a little rough. There's going to be a day one patch.
Yeah,
this game to me was like almost flawless. Like if you put this game, the build that I played out now, it is absolutely like it's not a major, it's not like a Jedi Survivor situation or anything like that where you're like constantly fighting against the game. No.
Right. Aside from those sort of like anomalous like issues we had, like this game is run perfectly, right?
Yep.
I've had very few issues with it, and you're right. If it launches like this, it'll be good for most people, right?
Yeah, I should also mention that it's cross-play and cross-progression, so you can carry the character on different platforms if you decide to buy 2 copies. And you can play.
Absolutely. Me and you took out a boss together. It was very
cool. We ran into an issue. I don't know.
Yeah, no, go for it. Speaking of bugs, I'll let you lead.
This was a server thing. I don't know what's happening with it. But so you're in the UK. I'm in Egypt. We usually connect to the same servers in somewhere in Western Europe. So the server is going to be in Ireland or France or, the clusters that exist for servers everywhere in the world.
Yeah, the sort of EMEA servers.
EMEA, almost, it's usually Western Europe, usually Ireland from my experience on other games. Anyway, I could see the ping on PC because there's a command that you input that sees the ping on PC. And so in my solo dolo playthrough, it was usually the standard ping that I get to these servers, which is from 60 to 80 ms. Right?
Yeah.
You can't see your ping on PlayStation, but I imagine Connor was running with around 2030, considering...
I was running pretty smooth throughout my entire time, yeah. I couldn't notice anything.
Then, we decided to do the final boss together. He joined me, and then my ping shot up to 300, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And 300 is like not even... we had theorized that maybe we're doing peer-to-peer, so we're connected to each other's PCs.
We were trying to figure it out, right? Because it shouldn't have jumped up that high. No, like if it shouldn't have done that. If it was server based and we'll jump to the same server, you wouldn't expect that to happen, right? Especially if you're joining your game, like why would that
exactly. It should, like when a game is always online, it should just get people together in the nearest server and figure it out, right?
Yeah.
This could still be like a weird pre-release thing where not every server is available and like some funky stuff going on. But the result of it was, I don't know if you, I think it was fine for you, Connor. Like you didn't.
Oh, I was great. I was throwing out attacks. I was taking out demons. I was having a great time.
Okay, so for me, because I had like almost a 300 ms ping, the fight had effectively started, and Connor was done with the first segment of the health bar, and I was still in my cutscene. And so my cutscene was playing, and I was seeing Connor just jumping around doing stuff, and I was like, "What is happening?"
Charging through demons and all sorts of stuff, like.
And I can't skip it, so I have to wait. And then I waited, and then I spawned into the arena. I see Connor running around, and I still don't see the boss. So I'm following, basically moving the mouse around to try and see where it turns red, and focusing on it. And then immediately it resolved itself. But this is one of those things where it's like, hyping is going to be a problem. I am hoping the specific issue that we ran into is weirdly related to like pre-release server stuff, and not something because if we're both in EMA or the Middle East or Europe or whatever, we should both be having the same experience just together. Because I
felt really bad because, again, we can't spoil it, and nor would we want to, but it's a really, really sick sort of like climax to the game.
Yeah.
This was the final boss you brought me in for. And I was like, this is really cool. Let's finish this up together. A nice sort of way to test out the multiplayer. And I watched the video clip you posted in like the work, like Slack, and it was totally ruined. Totally ruined for you. Like the voice acting cut out. You just see me charging through demons like in front of your character model. Just totally ruined the end of the game.
I gotta imagine it's like one of those things.
But like, I think that's why I'm worried, right? We have these few issues where we're like, well, hopefully these are just like pre-launch server issues, but we don't know.
Yeah.
Right? These aren't mentioned in the known issues thing in the press. So when you get a code, you get given like a known issues document, right? Stuff you can bear in mind when you're playing. And these aren't mentioned there. So I'm sitting here crossing my fingers saying, I mean, this game is solid, right? Despite my issues with like the open world aspect of it and whether or not I'm just being an old man or whether or not this is a genuine sort of like design mistake, right? If the bugs aren't there, the big ones you ran into, fine. I think most people are going to buy this game and have a good time with it, at least once through one playthrough, right? If these are in the main game, possibly made worse by just server issues, I'm genuinely concerned that people are going to go into this otherwise decent game and just hit a brick wall of something that's really frustrating or sort of sours the moment, right? And I would hate for that to happen. Because a lot of people on the dev team have worked really hard and done a really good job on this. Animators, musicians, designers, artists, everyone have like poured through and done a Blizzard Entertainment cinematic team once again undefeated. The most goated team of people of all time.
Less of a focus on pre-rendered cutscene in this than I imagined.
It's quite spare. It's used rarely, sparsely.
Like 2, I feel like, or 3. The flip side of that is that their in-game cinematics are now super on the level of like modern like action games that doesn't really matter. So it might sound a little quote unquote cheap because they're not the expensive cutscenes that you're used to from Blizzard that end and like bookmark every act, but instead it's actually a lot more work to animate these characters in frame and have them emote well. And it's not like Last of Us level or anything crazy, but it's still very compelling. I was actually surprised when an actual pre-rendered cutscene, I was like, oh right, I remember those from the other games. I was like, oh okay.
The in-game cutscenes are solid enough and done well enough where you're not torn out of it. Like you can feel still kind of sad and like emotional moments or like moments of great gravitas. And those pre-rendered cutscenes are just so wild. The most metal stuff in the most metal shit in the world, like unbelievable.
People I can't even like eclipse the objective. It was like descend into hell. I was like, hell yeah.
so sick. So yeah, that's basically my thoughts on Diablo. We'll have a review out on the site either as you're watching this or soon or in the past. So read that for my thoughts on the game some more. But yeah, check out the game. If you've got disposable cash, you want some RPG goodness, the Diablo 4 is solid.
Wait for the servers to stabilize and then and then wait for reviews.
Maybe wait a day. Maybe wait one day. You can never ever be prepared enough. But
you can never be prepared enough. I'm just hoping we don't run into Diablo 3 situation, which was offline for days. I don't think we will. But they have like a really poor track record on that stuff. I think it would probably be Destiny for like
the WoW Dragonflight launch was pretty good. That's like the last big release from Blizzard that had like the potential for big server issues, and they sorted that pretty well. So
yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be that. But like in my memory, that game, because I remember buying the game on day one and not being able to play for a week, and I was pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's we don't need to bring that up. But yeah, I think they're much more prepared to deal with it now, and I'm hopeful it's not going to be so much disturbance. Well, thank you, Connor.
Thank you, Sherif,
about Diablo.
It's always lovely to talk to you, and
it's always
to
a pleasure,
our
man.
lovely viewers. Yeah, I'm going to jump back into Diablo and track down some mortars and do some dungeons.
Me too. Right, see you soon, everybody.
See you soon.
If you're a big fan of Orc, it's got a treat coming up for you. Here it is. I've had some user feedback saying some people don't like this Orchid pattern. This is for you and all. That's the stuff. Some banging Orchids there. Drop us an email if you fancy that as a Christmas single.